Hello, everyone. I hope your Friday is going wonderful and you're working on revising your assignment 1. It's due on Sunday night. As you revise your assignment 1, make sure that you have all the elements that are important. 1, that you have a story. You're telling a story about a small incident of your life that throws light on who you are. Make sure you're doing that. And make sure that you end your story with a little bit of reflection, and which wraps up the story and tells what's the purpose, what's the what do we learn from that story, essentially. So I hope you revise that. And as you're working on it, I want to talk about your second assignment. Your second assignment is a narrative / research case study. You're going to do a research case study, and for that assignment, you are going to read an article by Malcolm Gladwell, which is going to be the core of your assignment. All of your assignment 2 is based on this article, so you have to read it really diligently and properly. Make sure that you annotate and make sure you take care of everything that's on the article and you understand it clearly. So I'm going to just pull out the article for you here. And let's just share my screen. Okay. All right. So let's get rid of this. All right. So this article that you're going to read, I'm going to just read the first page and tell you what's the crux, so that you understand what's going on. So Malcolm Gladwell wrote the article, and in this article, he basically researched, he was involved in a case of plagiarism, and he interviews all the people that are involved in this case of plagiarism. So it's Malcolm Gladwell himself, Bryony Lavery, the playwright of Frozen, and a psychiatrist named Dorothy Lewis. Okay, so one day, I'm going to just read the first page and tell you what's going on. One day this spring, a psychiatrist named Dorothy Lewis got a call from her friend Betty, who works in New York City. Betty had just seen a Broadway play called Frozen, written by the British playwright Bryony Lavery. She said, somehow it reminded me of you. Okay, so this is Lewis saying, my friend Betty told me that it reminded her of me. You really ought to see it, Lewis recalled. Lewis asked Betty what the play was about, and Betty said that one of the characters was a psychiatrist who studied serial killers, and Dorothy Lewis studied serial killers. Lewis had studied several killers for the past 25 years with her collaborator, the neurologist Jonathan Pincus. She has published a great many research papers showing that serial killers tend to suffer from predictable patterns of psychological and physical and neurological dysfunctions. And she had studied many victims of harrowing physical and sexual abuse as children, and that was, she'd studied a lot of it. And in 1998, she had published a memoir of her life and work entitled Guilty by Reasons of Insanity. She was the last person to visit Ted Bundy. I don't know if you guys know who Ted Bundy is. Google if you don't know. Few people in the world have spent as much time thinking about serial killers as Dorothy Lewis. So when her friend Betty told her that she needed to see Frozen, it stuck her as a busman's holiday. But the calls kept coming. People kept telling Dorothy Lewis that, there's this Broadway play, you should see it. She kept getting that call. And then Frozen was winning raves on Broadway, and it had been nominated for a Tony. Whenever someone who knew Dorothy Lewis saw it, they would tell her that she really ought to see it. It reminded them, as they saw the play, it reminded of Dorothy. So finally, Dorothy Lewis gets to see the script. Okay, so the script came, she gets to see it, and she realizes that a lot of what is on the script is from her life and is very much resembles her life. Initially, she thought it's a coincidence, Then as she read the details of the play, it really resembled her life. She was really confused. She thought maybe someone read her memoir, you know, guilty by reasons of insanity, and they just copied and made a play out of it and did not attribute her. But that was not it. So many years before the book was the play was published, was out, she had given an interview. She had given an interview to a journalist called Malcolm Gladwell, okay, who's the author of this article also, by the way. So she had given an interview to Malcolm Gladwell, who's a journalist. He's a writer, and he'd interview her about her work and about her book and about all the stuff that she had done and about her research. That article, that interview article, was published, and when that was published, Bryony Lavery, the author of the playwright, the author of the play, Broadway play Frozen, when she read that article, she got really inspired by the interview that she had read, and she created a character for her Broadway play inspired by it. And if as people watched the Broadway play, it resembled a lot of Lewis's personal life. So basically, as you read, and you'll finish reading the article, all of it, it talks about how Lewis felt that her life was on a play, and she never got any credit for it. She was not attributed. She was not honored. And Malcolm Gladwell's interview was in the play, because all the stuff that he had asked her about herself, and her responses on that interview were on that play. And so that's the setting of the play, the case of plagiarism. Malcolm Gladwell, in this article that you are reading, is basically analyzing the situation and thinking about, well, what happened, and like, what should he do now that he got involved in this case of plagiarism, that a Tony Award-winning Broadway play is based off of an interview that he had taken of a psychiatrist. And so that's how he gets roped in. And so I want you to read the article very diligently, clearly, because your entire assignment 2 is based on your understanding of what happens in this article. Okay, so happy reading. For Monday, you have to read chapter 1 of Everything is an Argument. And for Wednesday, you have to finish reading Malcolm Gladwell's what is it titled? Picture Problem. You have to finish reading that essay. So read that and finish your assignment 1. And I'll see you guys next week, Monday, in class. Okay? All right. If you have any questions, shoot me an email and I will be happy to respond.